A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another graphic novel review today, so cheers. Oh, that is a good beer. Now we are getting to the arse end of Garth Ennis's phenomenal series of Preacher. So we're going to be looking at Book 8 or Volume 8, All Hells Are Coming. Written by Garth Ennis, of course, art by Steve Dillon. A fantastic run on the series, some great character work in this. A little slow in the beginning, but that is perfectly fine. And this volume actually ends with a special Tall in the Saddle, which I will, of course, be reviewing because it's part of Book 8. But I will be kind of looking at this as a separate comic, although it will be in this video. So, those of you that don't know Preacher, go back and watch the previous 7 videos that have been uploaded on the channel. Just to fill you in on the story, although in this you get finally some backstory about Tulip and Amy, and you get to find out a lot more about Cassidy, and a lot of shit just happens. So this is kind of building up to the final run, Book 9. So let's just, sit back, relax, and get right into the next episode of...
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Okay, now before I get started looking at Book 8 of Preacher, All Hells Are Coming, I've had some people actually message me and talk about the way that I film these. And, there are other YouTube channels out there that look at graphic novels and things like that and talk about comic book stories that are more streamlined and better developed and all that kind of stuff. And I get it. I do watch those. But this isn't my job. This is just something I do for fun. So I don't have the time. I don't have the luxury to get an awesome setup and to edit these things in a way that I would really like. I would love to do that kind of panel by panel moving thing. But the fact of the matter is, I've got a job that pays the bills, and this is just something that I do because I enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. This is something that Plaguelands Media does because this is the sort of things that we are interested in. And when I get some time, I will shoot out a video and put it out there for you to like or for you to dislike. And it's perfectly fine either way. I don't really mind if you hate my style and you hate my setup. That is okay, because you're entitled to that. That's your point of view. But I just wanted to let the people know out there who have complained about it that, there's a reason for it. I'm basically using a $10 tripod and a cell phone to do this. So there you have it. That's the equipment I've got. That's the equipment I use. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's entirely up to you. So, with that said, Preacher, All Hells Are Coming. Okay, we get some nice Jesse and Tulip lip action there. A little bit of background information on the characters. I will turn off the light so we don't get the glare. There we go, that's a bit better, although it's a little bit dark. Story so far, which is fine. One moment, I'm just going to go and turn another light on. Okay, just so I can see a little bit better. Okay, so we have Tulip. Remember, she believes Jesse has been dead for about 6 months. And she's got the pills and the vodka there. And then she kind of starts to get her shit together. And she's like, fuck this, I don't need this shit, I'm leaving. Cassidy, who's been keeping her doped up, tries to stop her. And she's like, I really don't need this shit. I know what you've been doing. And if you don't let me go, I will fucking shoot you. And he's like, I'm a vampire. That's not going to fucking do anything. But she shoots him outside. And he falls and starts to burn in the sunlight. So he crawls under the pickup truck. She gets in the truck, drives off. And in doing so, she manages to run over his feet as a little bit of payback and revenge. Now we kind of go into a kind of a flashback scene. This is Tulip's father, and he's at his local bar, and he's celebrating the fact that he is going to be a father. He's going to take his son hunting and fishing and doing all that. And then his friend, one of the guys who's his friend, is like, well, what if it's a girl? And they all start laughing, and he's like, yeah, that's never going to happen. And he gets a phone call, and he finds out that his wife died in childbirth, and she in fact gave birth to a girl. And they're all like, damn. So he goes to the hospital. The nurse hands him the baby. He's a bit unsure of what to do. But then he comes around and is like, you know what? Fuck it. She's a girl, but she can do whatever the fuck she wants. That is fine by me. So he raises Tulip to be kind of independent, self-sufficient. He basically tells her she can be whatever she wants to be. He takes her shooting, and she misses, but it's getting close to Christmas, and he's gotten her a present. It's her own gun, which she fires and blows up the middle bottle, but it's so powerful it shoots her back in the snow. A little bit of a comedic moment there. And then he's kind of bragging about her to all of his friends. In school, she goes to talk to the girls about this movie that she had just seen, Kelly's Heroes. Great film, by the way. And the girl's like, that's a boys' movie. Fuck off. And so she goes to the boys and says, hey, what did you think about Kelly's Heroes? And they're like, that's a boys' movie. Fuck off. So she kind of doesn't fit in with anyone. She's not allowed on the baseball team. And she smacks a kid in the head with a baseball bat because he was kind of mocking her. The principal tells the father, you've got to be raising her like a proper girl. And he's like, why? Like, can't she be on the baseball team? You saw the swing that she had. And the father pretty much doesn't give a shit. He takes her fishing. And basically tells her you can be anything that you want to be. So this was a really great insight into like Tulip's childhood, being raised by a single father, and a father who basically fucking cared what his daughter wanted. Didn't try to box her into these fucking stereotypes that people seem to do. Not so much today. I mean, sure, it's still out there, but back in the day, this was a fucking issue. Great tulip cover there. So Tulip is in this diner, and she's reminiscing again, and this is her father taking her hunting for the first time, wanting her to kill her first buck, get some antlers to hang over the mantelpiece. Her father has just said, I'm just going off to do a shit, and she's waiting for him when she hears a gunshot and she hears some people freaking out, and one of these other hunters has shot her dad in the back of the head while he was about to wipe his ass. A very undignified way to go, so to speak, but there you have it. So she's put in this boarding school. This is where she meets Amy for the first time. Amy is a rich girl who Tulip doesn't understand why Amy wants to kind of hang around with her. And Amy is like, you're the only one in this school that really doesn't fucking care. And so they become very fast friends. And over the break period, Tulip was just going to stay in the school, but Amy takes her back to her house, dolls her up to go to this party, shows Amy, as they're driving to this party, shows Tulip the gun that she has, and Tulip freaks the fuck out. She's like, I hate guns, and Amy's really sorry, like, I completely forgot what happened. They get to this frat party. Tulip clearly doesn't want to be there, but Amy is kind of enjoying herself, and it's clear that Amy kind of gets drugged. Tulip stumbles in, trying to find Amy so that she can leave, and Amy's about to be gang raped by these guys. Tulip flees the house, runs away, or does she? No, she gets in the truck. She drives through the fucking wall, pulls out the gun, and fires over everyone's head. Now, you got to understand that these guys are like the kids of rich men. So this is this self-entitled fucking bullshit that you see all the fucking time. And she gets Amy the fuck out of there while this guy just pisses himself and curls up into a ball. Tulip chastises Amy, but Amy lets her know that you were fucking amazing. That was some superhero type shit right there. And this is when they go to a bar and Tulip meets Jessie for the first time. The girl Jessie's with at the time tries to jump Tulip in the bathroom. Tulip beats the shit out of her, and her and Jessie hook up. And that is when kind of everything happens. Now, Tulip has come back to Amy. This is in the kind of present time, just to let her know what Cassidy did and that Jessie's dead. And Amy's like, hey, listen, he's not dead, and he's actually coming here because he wants to find you. We saw this at the end of the volume 7, where he called Amy and he's like, blah, blah, blah. And then there's a buzzing at the door, and Tulip is kind of freaking out a little bit. So Jessie is driving with Skeeter on the way to Amy's place, and he picks up this hitchhiker who is a former porn star who stole some money from the guys that were making the movie, and he just talks about his kind of misadventures and things like that. And Jessie takes him as far as he can go, and as they're listening to the radio, we have some more hitchhikers. This time it's the 2 sex detectives from way back in volume 1. We saw them initially with her star and at Desaad's party. Jessie picks them up, doesn't really recognize them, but they talk about their life and whatnot. And they're on the trail trying to find this porn star who has ripped off their boss. That's their job, is like sex detectives. And it happens to be the porn star that Jessie just picked up. And so he kind of throws them off the trail a little bit. And the guys are like, wow, he was super nice. So then we hear on the radio these 2 people going back and forth. I believe they're talking about Arseface, and Jessie's getting a bit pissed off with what they say. So he stops and calls into the radio station and uses the voice of God, and he says, tell us what you really want. And the woman is just like, the feminist woman is just like, I want cock. And the guy's just like, I want cock as well. And he keeps driving, talking to this shadowy figure just about what he needs to do. And then he finally gets to where Amy is, and he hits the buzzer, and then Amy's like, she's here. So this issue was kind of wrapping up a couple of storylines, primarily with the sex detectives and with Jesse kind of putting his viewpoints on the degradation of what do we call it, like societal norms. I mean, it's much worse today than it was back then, but we still had this kind of fucking culture of over the top outrage at fucking nothing. So make of that what you will. I love that the little cupids are ass faces. That's fucking cool. So Jesse and Tulip reunite, of course, which ends in sex, as it always does. While Amy is sitting alone in this bar, and Tulip and Jesse are having their back and forth, and Tulip's like, where the fuck were you? Amy's talking to this bartender and explaining the situation that two of her friends were kind of torn apart. She thought he was dead, then they reunited and blah, blah, blah. And Tulip then decides to tell Jesse everything about what Cassidy did, even as far back as the very beginning where Cassidy professed his love for her and how she kept it a secret from him because they were best friends, and Jesse's just trying to kind of take this all in. So Amy is talking to this guy, and we're going to get this guy's story. It's very brief, but so disturbingly, hilariously sad in a way. So Tulip just wants to go out into the snow, and Amy is kind of, this guy's really nice, and Amy's like, wow, it's the first nice guy I've met. And he decides to tell her his story. So he actually went to a police station to get some parking tickets dealt with. And as he was waiting, the cop called someone's name, and he mistakenly thought that it was his name that was called because the names sound very similar. So he went and he signed the papers thinking that it was something to do with his traffic tickets. The cops take him to a hospital. He's protesting this whole time, but they're not going to listen to him because he's already signed the papers. And they strap him down, and then he is chemically castrated. They basically dissolve his genitals because his name sounded very similar to a pedophile who had agreed to chemical castration to stop the urges. It was a few months before everything was worked out, at which point the city had to pay him millions of dollars in compensation. And because he couldn't satisfy his wife ended up leaving him, taking all that money, leaving him now just as this lowly bartender, which is, it's funny, but it's not, that is Garth Ennis to a T. Jesse gets hit in the face with a snowball from Tulip, and they kind of have a little bit of fun in the snow, and Amy is kind of happy that she met this guy, and they kind of have a drink together while Tulip and Jesse kiss. Okay. That is the happy part of this story from this volume. Now we move into the more darker stuff, where we have this character here. So we see Hoover. You remember Hoover was the guy from the very beginning that worked with Featherstone and Star, and Jesse made him count all of the grains of sand on the beach, which he finally ends up doing. And Jesse, now wanting to know more about Cassidy, decides to go to the old haunts that Cassidy kind of told him about. And he goes to the bar that Cassidy frequented the most and talks to the guy there. And the guy's like, listen, I don't know this guy. But yeah, it's been a long time and I haven't worked here all that long. Star is at the airport. They're going to meet a contact from the Grail who has come over to do a report. Featherstone is with him. And Featherstone is just happy that Star is kind of back. This fat, what's the word for them? Indigent, homeless woman comes into the bar. The guy kind of chases her out, but she basically lets on that she knows Cassidy. So Jesse follows her out to the alley and she says, listen, give me some money and come back here tomorrow and I'll tell you everything you need to know. Star and Featherstone are on one of those walkways. They're moving walkways at the airport, and there's an elderly woman with all of her luggage on the trolley, and she's not actually moving. And Star starts to get fucking angry, screaming at her. Moving fucking bastard walkway, and just fucking yelling shit and firing his gun at security cameras. And Featherstone's like, you've got to calm the fuck down. And then he sees who is there to meet him. Eisenstein. Skeeter is with Tulip and Amy. Amy is lamenting meeting the guy in the bar because he's the first nice guy that she's met, but he's chemically castrated. And they just kind of chat about Jesse and what he's doing. Okay, so Eisenstein has an associate with him. This guy here, who's former Spetsnaz, which is kind of like the Russian special forces. And that guy has a Rottweiler, which he trained kind of for protection. And Star is freaking out a little bit because this guy, according to Star, should be dead by now. That's how old he is, but he's clearly not. Jesse meets Sally, and Sally talks about Cassidy and basically how much of an asshole Cassidy was back in the day. Hoover returns to Featherstone, and Star is reunited with him, and Star really doesn't give a fuck. He's more worried about what is going to happen with this Grail operative Eisenstein. In the next issue, we move to Arseface and his manager, who called the Vatican because the song wasn't, Arseface's song wasn't number one, and then kind of made this thing up where Arseface basically swore at the Vatican and basically told him to fuck off, and that got his song back to #1. And then he has his woman for Arseface to kind of get him distracted, so to speak. So then we get Sally talking about Cassidy again. Featherstone makes sure Hoover is kind of dressed normally, and they go in to see Star, and Star is just fucking throwing the computer out the window and just beating the shit out of all these electrical things. And he's telling Featherstone, listen, is there anything on the computers that can fucking incriminate me, because this guy is going to come after me? And Featherstone's like, no, of course not. Although there was the mercenary that we had attacked Desaad's party, who was put in critical condition in hospital, and I've been making sure that his medical bills have been paid, and that might be on the computer. So that might be an angle that Eisenstein can exploit, which he does. He goes to see the mercenary and makes sure the mercenary's attention is all on him. He's like, just look at me, look at me. Sally talks about Cassidy back in the day. Cassidy was a user of people. He would use a woman, get her to give him money, and that money was used to buy drugs and shit like that. Star is still freaking out as we see Eisenstein in the hospital with this guy who... What am I looking at? Okay. And Eisenstein is trying to get him to explain what exactly he was doing there. And he's saying, just look at me, because I have a Russian operative, a Spetsnaz guy, and he's done some really bad things. So you might want to talk to me. And then he goes on to describe this one training mission where it was like Russians and someone else, and they got caught in this cabin, and only the Russians survived, and this is the reason why. And you can see the guy's basically eating his hand, and he's got the dog there. The manager of Arseface makes a couple of phone calls as Sally tells Jesse about exactly what Cassidy did, how abusive he would be. He would get these women hooked on drugs. He would take their money. He would treat them like absolute shit, because that's the sort of person that he is. And when they questioned him, he would basically smack them around. And she says to him, listen, give me some money, come back here, and I will tell you the rest of the story. Okay. We see here, Hoover is in love with Featherstone. Featherstone is in love with Star, and Star is just like, shit. So he's got a plan to take out Eisenstein before Eisenstein takes him out. A few years later, Cassidy comes back. This is kind of Sally's recollection. Cassidy has been gone for about 10 years. And then he comes back and he meets up with them again and gets engaged to one of them and gets her hooked on heroin. Arseface is having the time of his life as a rock star. Cassidy basically is in debt and tells his fiancée, look, I will go and get the stuff. You don't have to worry about it. And she goes off looking for him and finds him sucking the dealer's dick in an alley. And then the dealer is like, I'm all out of junk anyway, and leaves them kind of to it. Cassidy kind of flips his shit and is abusive to his fiancée. When they're in bed, he basically tells her, look, I just need a little bit to get stronger so I can go and get the junk. And he tries to bite her, but she was like, fuck off, and pulls the curtain down. So he catches on fire, and then he goes and hides in a closet. Sally says she went back to see him many, many years later, and he was basically just hidden in this dark room eating rats, and that was the last time she ever saw Cassidy. But the point is that Cassidy basically destroyed the lives of all of these women and these people that he was close to, just like he almost destroyed Tulip's life after Jesse supposedly died in the desert. Star has hired assassins to kill Eisenstein. It is not working. Bombs and whatnot. And then we have Sally with the photograph of all of them together, which she gives to Jesse before she dies on the park bench. And some guys come and take her away and kind of explain to him that this happens to a lot of homeless people, that their bodies just kind of give out on them. Arseface is being kind of protested after his apparent comments to the Vatican, which he didn't make. And the chant is wipe the arse. He doesn't quite know what's going on. Star gets a call from Eisenstein, who wants to meet him to talk about his report. Jesse comes back after spending all this time with Sally, kind of going around, and Tulip is like, have you finished what you had to do here? And he's like, yes. Then there's a knock at the door, and it's Cassidy. Okay, let's move on. We see a space shuttle going around the Earth. Then we see the guy that saved Jesse. I believe his name was Johnny Lee Wombat, kind of listening in on the communications. Cassidy wants to talk. Jesse's not having any of it. Tulip gets her gun and basically tells him to fuck off. Amy comes back from her parent-teacher conference because she is a teacher, and she has a gun, and both of them confront Cassidy, basically telling him to leave. And Jesse gives him a time and a place to meet, and they will talk. And Cassidy is like, whatever, and goes to punch Jesse, and Jesse stops his fist and tells Cassidy, this is what we're doing. Cassidy leaves. Tulip is like, how the fuck did you do that? Because Cassidy is super strong. And Jesse goes, come on, if you take me to the hospital, I think I've broken every bone in my hand. But he remains stoic the whole time. Fucking awesome. Star goes to meet Eisenstein. Arseface. The protests are getting worse and worse. And Arseface goes to meet his manager. And his manager isn't in his office. Eisenstein tells Star he knows exactly what Star did. He knows exactly what's going on. Why did you keep this a secret? And this is basically going to be the end of you. Star is like, fuck that. And goes to kind of escape. The Spetsnaz officer grabs his leg, but it's his wooden leg, the prosthetic leg, because his leg was cut off by the hillbillies in the desert. Star shoots him. and kind of is celebrating his victory, but then this dog comes out, the dog that this Spetsnaz guy has, and basically chows down on Star's balls and dick. The manager left a letter for Arseface. Basically, Arseface is on his own now. He's penniless. And he's got nothing. He's got to deal with all of this by himself. Tulip and Jesse are getting ready to leave. Amy doesn't want them to go. Amy and Jesse have a little bit of a heart-to-heart, which is incredibly sweet, especially since we see a little bit more of this in the Preacher special, Tall in the Saddle, which is a prequel to all of this. And they get in their truck and they drive away, leaving Amy by herself. The space shuttle goes over the Earth. Johnny Lee Wombat is getting excited because they can actually see the giant fuck you that he spent so much time writing just to give the middle finger to NASA, and the whole thing there has come full circle. And now we get into the story, Tall in the Saddle. I'm just going to pause the video here, just because my camera is getting filled up and I need to get the footage off and ready for editing, and then I will come back and review this for the final part of this video. So, Tall in the Saddle, unlike the other Preacher specials that were featured in the graphic novel collection Ancient History, read and reviewed on the channel, part of this Preacher series. The art is, in fact, in this one, done by Steve Dillon, of course, writing by Garth Ennis. And this is a prequel story of Custer, Tulip, and Amy, and one of their misadventures. So we have Custer and Tulip there, and they are being... oops, I better cover that up. They are being spoken to with MacReady, who they have agreed to steal cars for him, but they in fact lost the cars that they were stealing for him, and he now wants them to steal some horses. How did they lose the cars? Well, Tulip antagonized some police by showing her boobies. The cops kind of lose them, and in the interim, Tulip decides that she wants to have sex with Jesse in the car. Meanwhile, Amy and this guy called Bobby, who she has hired to drive this truck with the stolen cars on them, get into a bit of an argument. Bobby freaks out, and as they are going to meet Jesse and Tulip, very kind of Fast and Furious style, there's a bit of a mishap. The truck hits their car. Bobby bails. Amy is forced to kind of drive it. She's not going to be able to stop in time, so they tell her to jump into their vehicle, and the truck with the cars goes flying off a cliff and explodes, and that is $1 million down the toilet. So MacReady now wants them to steal horses, but Jesse, being a Texas man, thinks that's not fucking cool, and he ends up kind of beating the shit out of some guys and basically walking away from the deal. All the while, he is being spied upon by this gentleman here. The three of them are sitting in a diner, kind of lamenting what happened. Amy is very apologetic. She thinks it's her fault. Jesse's like, who cares? It wasn't your fault. Just kind of let it go. And they end up, well, Tulip and Jesse end up in bed. And Tulip wants to drink, but she ends up pouring it into Jesse's crotch for some reason. Jesse sees Amy outside. It's kind of the middle of the night, and he goes out to talk to her, and she's still apologizing. They almost kiss, but don't, because Jesse says we both love Tulip too much to do that to her. The next morning, they're approached by this elderly gentleman who is kind of a detective who's been after McCready for a while. More importantly, the fact that McCready stole these horses from his daughter's kind of horse ranch, and he wants revenge. McCready basically, the whole point is he takes horses and he sells them to the French for meat. Usually they sell old and withered horses that are kind of on their last legs, but McCready's got these young horses, especially this stud called Augustus, who is this guy's daughter's kind of pride and joy, and people are willing to pay big money for this kind of horse flesh. The detective makes a deal with Jesse, Tulip, and Amy, and they decide to help him out. They formulate a plan. Tulip and Amy go one way, and Jesse and this detective, this guy, go and confront McCready. And McCready basically has Bobby, who was part of their plan. He's the guy that dived out of the truck that Amy had kind of hired. And all hell breaks loose. And what ultimately happens is Tulip and Amy get away, and the detective and Jesse get captured by McCready. And McCready's one of these fucking monologuing villains who is going to basically tell them and show them exactly how they are going to die. And then we meet this Frenchman who is the one that has come to purchase the delicate horse flesh. The Frenchman takes the detective's gun and shoots him in the stomach. A gut shot, if you're not familiar, is more often than not fatal, as piercing the intestines and whatnot, and the stomach bile leaking into the body leads to sepsis. It's a very slow and a very painful way to die. We see some of the horses being killed, and Jesse and the detective are kind of watching the whole thing. They are tied up and kind of left to die, but Tulip and Amy come in and start to untie them. The guy that Jesse beat the shit out of earlier is there. Jesse basically uses the thing that they're killing the horses with to kill this guy. They try to free the detective, but by this point he's already dead, and Jesse knows exactly what to do. He takes the gun, goes in, he finds Augustus, the horse with one white ear, gets on top of him, and they release all of the horses, and the villains kind of come in just as the stampede occurs, and Jesse rears Augustus up, and Augustus smashes McCready's head with his hoof, and all of the other horses get away. Finally, Jesse is taking the Frenchman out into the desert, where he basically hangs him from a tree, and then the guy pisses himself and shits himself, and Jesse, with Augustus, rides off into the sunset. He asks Augustus, should he maybe ask Amy and Tulip to have a three-way, and Augustus nays, and he goes, yeah, I didn't think so, I wasn't going to do that anyway. And that was Tall in the Saddle. Okay, so we have Volume 8, and this was actually part of Volume 8, but I just wanted to record it separately. What did I think? Really enjoyed the fact that at this point in the storyline, Garth Ennis is tying up not so much loose ends, but giving us a sense of why characters are the way they are. So you don't see this very often in longer comic book runs because new writers come, storylines change, things are retconned, but you can tell that Preacher is a very self-contained story. It's a limited number of issues. It's not something that is continually going to drag on. Garth Ennis had a story in mind, and he's using the limited amount of issues. I believe it's about 66, I could be wrong, to tell that story, which is fantastic. So in this way, the readers are given the kind of character wrap-up. We know why Cassidy is such an asshole. We know why Tulip is such a badass. We've already seen why Jesse is the way he is, but now we kind of get it. We get that little bit of sexual tension between Jesse and Amy that we saw in previous issues, and we see it again here in this prequel kind of one-shot, which I just think is really good because you know that you are going to get a story that ends, that you don't have to read anything else. You don't have to track down anything else. There's nothing else to read after Volume 9. That is the story. It is done. It is complete. There is nowhere else to go from there, which I really, really appreciate. So, with that said, this was, what was it? All Hells Are Coming? Something like that. I don't know. I've put it on my shelf already. But whatever it was, this was Preacher, Book 8, including Tall in the Saddle. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit the notification bell, do all the fucking stuff that every other YouTube channel tells you to do. But keep an eye out for a couple of Plaguelands Media projects that are coming up in the very near future. I will be talking about them on the channel, especially the latest Kickstarter that is coming very, very soon. The product is finished, so there is no reason for you not to back it. It is something that I think everyone will fucking enjoy, so stay tuned for that. But most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, people, stay safe, have a fantastic rest of your day, but most importantly, please read a fucking book, people.